It wasn't particularly sporting of me to fire on them from cover before they even realized I was there, but the situation left me no choice. There were 6 men gathered in the clearing, one of them pressing a knife to another man's throat, another aiming a gun at a woman, and a third violently tearing the clothes off a young woman. My first shot hit the knife wielder square in the forehead, and he dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. At the sound of the gunshot, the man holding the firearm turned to look, but my second shot found his throat, ripping it open. The third man, who had been assaulting the young woman, recoiled in fear and raised his hands high above his head, signaling surrender. Unfortunately for him, surrender wasn't an option I was offering. My third bullet buried itself in the middle of his forehead. I felt no hesitation or remorse, killing them was second nature. They were far from the first lives I'd taken. Uncle Sam had trained me to do this and ensured I had ample practice taking down the bad guys. After eliminating the 3 threats, I held my position to ensure there wasn't anyone else in the vicinity who might pose a danger. As I watched from my spot, a man and a woman rushed over to comfort the young woman who had been attacked. Observing the scene in the clearing, my mind wandered back to the series of events that had brought me here. I was in Texas, just south of Presidio, hunting wild hogs. After settling into my sleeping bag for the night, a woman's scream shattered the stillness. Grabbing my AR-15, I moved quickly to investigate. When I reached the edge of the small clearing, it was clear who the bad guys were. Without hesitation, I dealt with them. Even the one who tried to surrender had to go. I wasn't about to involve local law enforcement. My boar hunting trip was over. By dawn, I planned to be halfway home to Colorado. Curiosity got the better of me, so I emerged from the trees into the clearing, rifle in hand, and approached the trio. I gestured toward the young woman and asked if she was okay. The man, who appeared to be Hispanic, likely Mexican, given our proximity to the border, responded in decent English, "She's all right, sir, thanks to you." He explained that he had paid the men with the knife and gun to smuggle him and his family into the United States and deliver them to a cousin in Las Cruces. But after crossing the border, they were led into the clearing by a third man, who demanded extra payment and began assaulting Juanita, the young woman. I asked about their vehicle, and he said it was parked further down the road. After confirming he could drive, I searched the bodies of the attackers, finding $3,000 on the man with the knife and another $2,000 on the others. Handing the money to the man, whose name was Roberto, I instructed him to load his family into the car and follow me. I drove them to Las Cruces, a 5-hour journey, before heading back to Denver. Cutting my trip short brought me home 3 days early. When I pulled into the driveway, it was packed with cars. Assuming my wife, Anne, had invited her friends over for a party, I walked inside. What I found, however, was far from a simple gathering. Anne's best friend was sprawled on the couch with a man I didn't recognize. Bess, one of Anne's co-workers, was bent over a chair while another co-worker had his way with her. My suspicions about our bedroom were quickly confirmed as I passed the guest room and saw Anne's brother, Tom, involved with yet another co-worker. From the hallway, a male voice called, "I'm almost done. Who's next?" Reaching the bedroom, I found Anne in bed with her boss. Pulling out my phone, I began filming the chaos. My presence sent the room into disarray. Anne's best friend screamed and tried to scramble away, while the man with Bess raised his hands defensively, his face pleading innocence. Tom looked at me with a mix of guilt and shock, while Anne's expression was one of utter horror. Rick, her boss, leaped up and struck a martial arts pose, which only made me laugh. My laughter was deliberate. If he attacked first, I could defend myself without repercussions. As he lunged at me, I hurled my phone at his face, causing him to flinch and raise his hands. Taking the opportunity, I kicked him where it hurt most. Rick crumpled to the ground, clutching himself, and I dragged him naked to the front door before shoving him outside and flipping on the porch light. Most of the partygoers had fled by the time I returned. Only 3 remained, Tom, claiming he stayed to protect Anne, Steph, offering moral support, and Anne herself. When Steph asked about my next move, I made it clear, I was divorcing Anne. Her excuses fell flat. She claimed it was only physical, with no emotional involvement. But to me, vows were sacred, and she had broken hers repeatedly. In the bedroom, and tried to explain, but her words cut deeper than any betrayal. I wanted something different, the thrill of multiple men. It wasn't about you. I told her to leave. When she resisted, reminding me it was her home too, I pointed out the prenup her father had insisted on before our marriage. It ensured she would walk away with nothing, and I intended to enforce it. One evening, while having drinks at Bud's bar, he mentioned he wished he had a prenup like mine. Curious, I dug it out and read through it. There was a clause about adultery stating that the guilty party would dissolve the marriage, leaving with only their clothes and whatever was in their name. Since everything Anne and I owned was jointly shared, she was caught off guard. She got dressed and left, likely taking her naked boss with her. The next morning, as soon as the bank opened, I was there. I closed all our joint accounts and opened new ones solely in my name. Then, I sought out an attorney and initiated divorce proceedings. I also learned that we resided in a state where marital relationships could be dissolved. When I asked if it mattered that her boss also owned the company she worked for, the lawyer inquired whether the company had a corporate policies and procedures manual. I confirmed that it did and mentioned that I likely had a copy at home, as and hadn't taken much when she left, just her clothes. That evening, I checked our home office and found the manual still on the shelf. The next morning, I handed it to my lawyer, who read through it and confidently said, "We've got him." Within 2 days, divorce papers were served to both Anne and her supervisor, in full view of their co-workers. Later that evening, as I arrived home, Anne's father was sitting on the porch. After exchanging pleasantries, he asked if we could have a conversation inside. Once we were seated, he inquired, "What's this about divorcing Anne and kicking her out of the house? It's her home too." I told him plainly, I caught her cheating and threw her out. "And don't forget that agreement you made me sign before we got married. It stated that, in cases of infidelity, the cheater leaves with just their clothes." He tried to reason, "She's only human, Bob. People make mistakes. She loves you more than anything, and I'm sure you can move past this." I replied, "Maybe if it had been a one-time lapse. But I've discovered this has been going on for over a year and with multiple men. That agreement wasn't just a formality. You drafted it to keep your business in the family, but you worded it in a way that was binding. If that's your mistake, don't put it on me." His tone turned serious as he warned, "You need to go easy on her, kid. If you force me to get her a lawyer, this could turn ugly." Pulling out my phone, I calmly said, "You want trouble? I can give you trouble." I pressed a few buttons and held the screen up for him to see. His expression changed to shock as he recognized someone. "Is that Tom?" he asked. From the video, a voice could be heard coming from our bedroom, "I'm almost done." "Who's next?" And then her lover were scrambling to get out of bed. I turned off the video and said, "How unpleasant would it be for your friends and family to receive this as a personal message?" "You wouldn't dare," he challenged. "Try me," I replied. "Stay out of this. The day the divorce is finalized, I'll delete it. Until then, any interference, and I'll go nuclear." Surprisingly, he pulled out a revolver and demanded, "Hand me the phone." "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Delete the damn video," he snapped. I handed it over, saying, "Fine, but understand there are backups." As he waved the gun, he instructed me to step back. I watched as he deleted the file, then smugly declared, "See you in court," before leaving the house. As soon as he was gone, I emailed a copy of the video to my mother-in-law. Half an hour later, my father-in-law called, furious. "You disgusting piece of filth. How could you send that to my wife?" "I warned you," I retorted. "Don't test me unless you're prepared for the fallout." After that, he refrained from getting involved, and the divorce proceeded without further interference.